Well, hello. I hope you can hear me. Ah, I have no idea if anyone can hear me, if you cannot hear me with this microphone I've used. Goodness, if anybody does write in and say, "We can't hear you, Yolanda," then I'll take it off and see if that helps. In theory, it should be doing something positive. Also, of course, Facebook isn't that clear to me sometimes. So I don't even know if I'll manage to see your comments. Whoever's watching right now, would you write a comment? Just say hi so I can see that you're there and I can see if I can see your comments. Look, just like I'm doing. I'm going, hi. Anyone that's there, just say hi, please. And be nice to know if you can not only see me but hear me. Right. Good morning, good morning. In Wellbeing Week, World Wellbeing Week, which is being organized from Jersey, and how fabulous is that? A worldwide initiative. Thanks to Beverly Lequero for bringing up the idea and for making it happen. I wanted to mark Wellbeing Week by talking to you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, people. Can you hear me? Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me or something. Because my Mac sometimes does stop letting people hear me when I plug things in. And this is a new Apple microphone, so it's hard for me to know. So, as part of World Wellbeing Week, I wanted to have a contribution and to make a contribution, sorry, foreigner, and help you find your well-being. Many of us sometimes feel like we've really lost our well-being, like we really don't know where it went. Okay, so you see, the thing is, having helped thousands of people by now in nearly 7 years of being in this, I've come across so many people who you could say, in a manner of speaking, are kind of drowning, okay? And I have obviously done my best to help, to save them, from drowning. But I have come to realize that it would be much more useful, and this is what I'm into these days, and you'll see what I mean. It would be much more useful if you see somebody drowning, obviously, save his life. But if you keep seeing people drowning, like I have been seeing people drowning, how about you do something a bit different? So I've decided to go upstream and teach you how to swim. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is sharing with you an understanding that will prove to you, that will show you how you don't need me to find your well-being. You don't need anyone to find your well-being. And I don't care if I work myself out of a job. I'm going to show you that you don't need me, you don't need anything, and you don't need anyone to find your well-being. This understanding, and by the way, don't worry, I won't just talk. I will share with you this understanding, but I've reserved some time to do some tapping because I've had very determined requests of people that wanted to do some tapping with me today on various issues. So we will do that a bit later on in this event. And let's go back to the understanding that I wanted to share with you, which is based upon the big fat truth that human experience is really experienced inside out and not outside in. What does that mean? You see, I had a client once, and I've mentioned this client before because it was a classic case for Jersey particularly. I had a client once who lived on Jersey but couldn't go to the beach because if she so much as looked at the beach, she had a panic attack. There were reasons for it, of course there were, and we cleared the trauma with tapping for something that had happened on the beach once and so on. But I got curious as to how this could be that somebody can look at the beach and have a panic attack and somebody else can look at the beach and feel all jolly and lucky and I don't know, what do you feel when you look at the beach? I feel pretty lucky and pretty cozy and pretty really smug, that I live so near the beach. Come on. So, what's behind that? How can it be that somebody looks at one thing and somebody else looks at the same thing and their experience is so extremely different? What about the spider case that I mention often as well? Goodness me, you see my friend Javier Lopez, who's the head vet has been of Darrell and now of Chester Zoo. You see this man seeing a spider, it makes his day. He could give you an entire talk about what's going on there and things like that. Totally makes his day. I've seen this in practice. I've seen this. He suddenly is surrounded by people who are listening to him. Amazing. Well, for many other people, dare I say, most people, seeing a spider means a very different experience. And it could be the same spider that Javier is looking at. The same one, at the same place, in the same mountain where I was with him. Yeah? Well, how can that be? That for somebody, it makes you run a mile. And what can I say? I might be one of those. And for somebody else, it's a field day. Quite literally. Right? So what's going on there? Well, what is going on there is a big fat truth that it is not the spider. It is not the beach. It can't be the spider, can it? If it causes such different reactions. It can't be the beach, can it? The beach doesn't even know you exist, let alone it's looking and it's thinking, oh, hang on a minute, that's Yolanda there. I'll cause a feeling of happiness. Oh no, hang on, wait, that's the other lady over there. God, I better cause a panic attack on her, right? That doesn't even make sense, does it? That's because that's not how it works, right? So I got very curious about, well, what was it? What is it? Well, clearly it's something else, and clearly it's what you're doing with it that's causing an amazing experience or an altogether different experience. And what are you doing with it? Well, guess what you're doing with it? You're thinking about it, aren't you? You go to the beach and you have thinking about the beach, and that thinking is probably wonderful, and there you go. Or you're someone else who had a bad experience and you go to the beach and you have a very different type of thinking. And when you have a very different type of thinking, guess what? You get a very different type of feeling and a very different type of experience. Okay? So this is what I mean by the inside-out nature of human experience. It looks so real. It really looks like it comes from the beach, like it comes from people, from places, from circumstances. When in actual fact, that's not how it works. It really can't. So, I suppose what I'm saying here is that your feelings, these feelings that you might be feeling right now, and you might be thinking, oh, I really am not feeling amazing these days because of all this that's going on and because of what's happened or what is about to happen or what might happen or, because of all these external factors. I'm not feeling great. So how do I find my well-being, Yolanda? Because all this is very well and good. But what are you trying to tell me here? What I'm trying to tell you is that I'm not saying the world is at its best moment right now. I'm not saying what is happening isn't serious. But what I am saying, or it's not serious or it's not important, okay? But what I am saying is that your experience of it still comes from you inside out. And that your feelings about that or about whatever else might be going on and worrying you, your feelings can only ever tell you about the quality of your thinking, about the level of clarity in your mind. We all have varying levels of clarity within the same day, within the same hour, even within the same minute. We can look at one matter and think, oh no, that's all right. I'm all right with this. I can do this. And then another thought enters your mind, because that's how it works. Because we have the gift of being able to think. And then the thinking changes, and then the feeling changes, and then the whole experience changes. So, what does it look like? What does it look like to be someone that's trying to find their well-being? And this might be you. Any one of you that's watching now, or any one of you that's, in fact, told me even, people have sent me questions saying, thank you so much for that. Thank you, obviously, for being here listening. And to those of you, many of you who have written privately to say they can't watch me because they're at work right now. So thank you to you too as well for watching the replay as you're doing now, in that case. So what does it look like to feel that you need to find your well-being? One very, very common example for which I have received several messages is feeling anxious. You might be feeling anxious. It would be hardly surprising given the circumstances. So, what is going on when you're anxious? How do you find your well-being if you're being anxious? You see, when you're feeling anxious, all anxiety is, like any other feeling, is a symptom of where you are in your clarity of mind. Are you in a very clear place? Are you in a place where you're worth listening to? Or are you in a place where you're really not? We call this the ladder of consciousness as well. You know, are you up the ladder? Are you seeing things big picture, clear, no problem, I'm taking into account everything that needs to be taken into account? Or are you in fact down in the doldrums, down really low in the ladder of consciousness? So if you're anxious, and you might be, like I say, all that anxious feeling is telling you about is that you're in an unclear mind, that you're in an unclear pool of thinking that's creating an unclear pool of feelings. And it might be very intense. But the good news is it doesn't even matter how intense they are. It doesn't even matter. Because no matter how far you've traveled, you can always come back home. No matter how far removed you feel from your well-being, I can assure you 100% your well-being hasn't gone anywhere. That best version of you, the one that's calm and happy and cheerful and deals with the homeschooling and with the stressful job and with whatever and is still going and keeps smiling. That version of you, and it exists obviously, even if you see it less often perhaps these days than in other times, that version of you is exactly like the sun. It was so sunny yesterday. It was roasting, wasn't it? It's very unsunny right now, to put it mildly. That best version of you, is your real self. And it is always there because it can't go anywhere, because where is it going to go? And it is absolutely like the sun. When you can see the sun, it's all very well. When you cannot see the sun, You don't panic that it doesn't exist anymore, do you? You think, oh my goodness, the sun has gone. It's moved to some other, universe. Like that's going to happen, right? Of course you don't worry about that, do you? And that's the same with your best self, with your well-being, with your inner strength, with your wisdom. It's all still in there. It's just a bit cloudy. It can get cloudy. It can get unclear. It can get rainy. It can get stormy. It can get all sorts. But the sun is still behind the clouds. The sun is still behind the storm. And we had a decent one last night here. So you all know what I'm talking about. Nobody needed to panic, did they? So I suppose what I'm trying to tell you is that if you're anxious, and it works for anxiety and it works for every other negative feeling that is troubling you and bothering you. Excuse me. I don't know if I'm getting a little tiny bit of hay fever or something. So, sorry about that. So, back to anxiety. If you are feeling anxious, it's okay. You're not broken. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. I can absolutely guarantee that. You're just listening to anxious thinking. Have a look. Test it out. Watch yourself. It's very hard to feel happy if you're thinking miserable thoughts. And it's very hard to feel miserable if you've been thinking happy thoughts, right? Have a look. Watch yourself. I often say to my clients, sit back and watch your own feelings and then see how they always have come from thinking. No one can ever feel anything that hasn't started with a thought, right? It's very, very one-directional. So what I'm saying to you about, say, anxiety, and I'm sticking with anxiety because I know for a fact people are very interested in it, but it does apply to other feelings as well, is that when you're in an anxious state, you have zero, and I mean zero, reliable information around you. Because you're in an unclear mind, and you see, everything you're experiencing will be experienced inside out from that anxious state of mind. So your sensitivities will be anxious, and I treat people who have, say, misophonia, a hate of certain sounds. And when they're worried, that a certain noise bothers them much more, right? When they're anxious, when they're stressed. Your sensitivities will be more anxious. Your perceptions will be anxious. Your instincts, even your instincts, will be anxious instincts. So what I'm saying is, you have zero reliable information when you're in an anxious state of mind, when you're in an unreliable state of mind. The only thing that's reliable is that anxiety itself that's telling you very clearly about how unclear your mind is, about how very much your own thinking isn't worth listening to in that moment. You see, you can only ever feel your thinking in the moment. Like we were saying, with happy and miserable thoughts and so on. You can only ever feel your thinking in the moment. So even back to the example with the lady with the beach, fear and worry and panic attacks and so on. I just got curious. I thought, okay, how can it be that the same beach causes different reactions? Well, obviously it's your thinking. But even further, how can it be that the same person can view the beach in one way at the start of the session. And then we do tapping, which is wonderful and physically calms your brain. And we'll talk about it a bit more in a minute. And, sees me for one session. And the wonders of the tapping clear that trauma, reduce the blood flow to the stressy bit of her brain. And all of a sudden, she's okay with going to the beach. She's looking at my picture of Plymouth and having no worries at all, when at the start of the session I had to put it down, upside down on the floor. How can it be? This is the same person, and obviously the beach is the beach because he's not even in the room, and the one that's in the room by the end of the session, she's quite happy with. Okay? What shifted? You see what the tapping is doing, and that's how it fits really neatly into this other understanding I'm sharing with you. What the tapping is doing is physically reducing blood flow to the stressy part of your brain, reducing the stress hormones in your body. The cortisol reduction is well documented and is huge. And once it's done all that, a brain that's physically calmer, a brain that's got a stressy bit that's receiving reduced blood flow, reduced amygdala activation, that's called, that brain is going to naturally think calmer thoughts, which in turn will cause calmer feelings. And that's how the tapping and the coaching fit in really well in my practice. So the sun is still always there. The sun was always there. It's just sometimes we're seeing it, and sometimes we're just behind a cloud and we really can't see it. Like I say, this absolutely applies to any other feelings and any other thinking. And I could tell you all this bit about the anxious thinking, full credit to Dr. Aaron Turner, who's trained me in this understanding. That's the way he explains anxiety. But I would add to that you don't have to listen. That this is your listening ears, like we say to children, right? This is your listening brain, this is your own thinking, and you don't have to listen. I've had people say to me, I've been doing this and I don't have to anymore. Who am I to tell you what to think or what not to think? Not that you can change your thinking anyway. It's a very old school of thought that says, oh, just think positive, think positive. Once the thought has entered your mind, it's what thoughts do. They enter your mind, right? Once the thought is entered your mind, it's there. You can't control what thoughts you get. That's what's beautiful about this understanding. You don't even have to try. You can't control. You don't even bother controlling what you think, because you would have to. If the world really was that way, you would have to control every thought. And if that's how it worked, you would have to control every thought, and that's not possible. Once the thought has come in, yes, it's coming, but you don't have to engage with it. You don't have to listen. You don't have to engage with the person next to you on the bus, And in fact, if you don't engage, guess what? Their stop will come and they'll get off the bus, or your stop will come and you will get off the bus. And that's what thinking does. If you don't engage with it, it goes. It just goes. But of course, if you're sitting in that bus and you engage with the person next to you and in fact get into a fight with him, then guess what? Your stop will come and you will miss it, or his stop will come and he or she will miss it, right? You don't have to engage with the rubbish you don't like. That is entirely 100% your power, your prerogative. Okay? So, I'd like to, I suppose, quickly quote a colleague of mine, Nicola Bird, who also shares this understanding. And she wrote a blog post, which I quite liked, and I often send my clients to it because I don't even have time for blogging. So I just send people to look at interesting stuff. And And one of the things she blogged about, she wrote a post called 3 things that don't cause your anxiety. 3 things that don't cause your anxiety. Well, what things do you normally think would be causing your anxiety? Well, it would be either people, or it would be places, or it would be circumstances. Well, guess what? Those are 3 things that are in fact entirely unable to cause your anxiety. Have a look at Nicola Bird's 3 things that can't cause your anxiety, if you fancy. Or give me a call and I can talk you through it and chat and explain in detail. So, I'm not saying, because what I'm not saying is as important as what I'm saying. I'm not saying circumstances won't have an input in your life. Of course they won't have an input. They will have an input in your life. Of course they will determine what you need to do or what you mustn't do, what is advisable and what is not advisable. And I won't get into detail, but you all know what I'm talking about, given the circumstances, right? But every single bit that you have to do or that you mustn't do, every single bit that is advisable or not advisable, every single bit you can do, you can see, you can live, and you can experience from a clear mind. And that clear mind is already in you. You don't have to go and find it. So I suppose the long and short of finding your well-being is, I'm determined to prove to you that you don't have to find your well-being, because you never lost it, because it can't even be scratched. And I have seen extremely serious cases of people with very disturbed mental well-being. And even in those cases, their well-being is still in there. Even in those cases, they, you, me, we are one thought away from having a different experience. In fact, we're one thought away from entirely feeling differently. Okay, I don't have time to go into all the ins and outs of examples of, people, places, and circumstances, although the beach is a good example for the places that absolutely 100% can never cause you feelings. The office is another good one, actually. I've had so many people who would say to me, oh goodness, when I get to the office, I just, I'm so stressed out at work. Okay, well, where is the stress worse and where is it better? Oh, it's much worse when I'm at the office. You see, it really is unbearable when I'm there, particularly in a given meeting room where so-and-so said or this or that happened, right? And suddenly the stress goes through the roof, okay? And it seems so real that it would make sense for it to be worse at the office. Well, guess what? Stress isn't some droplet, and you'll all get this, isn't some germ that's flying around and you can catch. Stress is a feeling. And that feeling is not in some cloud that's only chemically full of those germs in the office building. In fact, some people feel the same stress at home, but on Sunday. They're not even at the office, but what's going on there? Of course, it's your thinking. On Sunday afternoon or on Sunday evening, you might find yourself having the same thinking, having lots of thinking about Monday at the office. So often people report that actually Monday is better than Sunday when they work with me. Because guess what? Guess how that works? Classic example of the place and the people and the work not being the actual cause of your feeling. You can easily be having a Sunday evening that's totally spoiled by your thinking about the workload and about this and about that. But Monday comes, and guess what happens? You get to the office and you have so much work to do. You have so much to deal with, and you have to crack on, and you do crack on. And when you crack on, your thinking is populated by the project in hand. Your thinking is populated by how to put your point across more succinctly in that important meeting, how to chat to that team member that's in trouble, and how to help them through this tough whatever project or personal moment or whatever it might be, you know? And in that moment, when you're having that chat with your team member who's going through whatever ever, or whose I don't know, technical issue is rather complex and requires help or whatever, in that moment, you're fully present and your stress doesn't even matter, does it? So I hope that's just another example that might resonate with some people, because you see, all I can ever try and do is share the things I've seen, the things I've learned, share examples of this understanding so that you can do your own seeing. I can't see for you. But if I point you in a given direction, and I tell my clients this very often, my job is to point you in a given direction so that you can do your own seeing. And once you've done your own seeing, once you've even got a glimpse that, oh wait, hang on, there may be some truth to this. Hang on, sometimes I am really quite cross with, say, my husband, and he's the same husband as the day before. And sometimes I am a bit less cross, and sometimes I'm fully delighted. Well, what's changing, you know? The poor bloke is the same bloke, right? So what's shifting? Well, guess what's shifting? Your thinking is shifting, because that's what it does. That's what it does best. Even if you did nothing, even if you sat there thinking, no, I'm going to be cross and I'm going to stay cross and I refuse to let go of this. And that's it. And that's me here sitting being cross. You know what? Eventually your thinking would shift and you wouldn't be so cross anymore. Even if you did nothing. And there's a book about this called Do Nothing, by the way. It's a brilliant book. So even if you sit there with it, eventually you would need some water, or you would need the loo, or whatever, or even if you need nothing physical, your thinking would shift. So that is one little glimpse, really, that I only have time to give you today about what going upstream means and teaching people how to swim. Sharing this big fat truth that your well-being is always there, that it will always be, that it's got you through everything up until now, and it always will. So no need to have anticipatory anxiety. No need to worry about how you will sort out the next time there's a peak in the virus, right? There's no need to work out the whole future now. And I think this crisis, this COVID crisis, has been a huge example of this. Because, you know, when it hit us, we had to work it out. Did we work it out? Of course we worked it out. We worked out quite fast. I mean, the pace of change was dramatic. We worked out really fast what we had to do and what we mustn't do, right? Tell me, do you think we worked it out before? Of course we didn't. We didn't know it was happening. We didn't know it was coming. Since we didn't know it was coming, we couldn't work it out, right? So how's that for proof that you can work it out? No matter how dramatic it gets, no matter how worrying, no matter how new, no matter how fast, you can work it out. Your wisdom is always there. Your well-being is always in you. And you really don't need to go and find it. So in terms of practical tips, yes, one of them definitely, by popular demand, yes, definitely you could do some tapping, because that will, physically calm your brain and that will help you think calmer thoughts, which will in turn result in calmer feelings. But what are the things you can you do? Excuse me again, I'm so sorry. Trust me, to get hay fever trouble all of a sudden in the middle of a Facebook Live. What other things can you do? Well, perhaps watch out, and we could even do some tapping as we speak. Just tap on the side of the hand, because I don't want to run out of time and rob you of your tapping. Those of you who are very interested in it, and thank you for being very interested in it. So you can start tapping on the side of the hand. Perhaps think about what it is that you're feeling that you're really not that happy about, excuse me. And give it a number, give it a 0 to 10. Think, okay, hang on, how worried am I right now? How whatever am I right now? How far from my well-being? Try to keep it specific. Choose one feeling that you're not happy with. And in respect of that one, choose a 0 to 10 number, where of course 0 is no problem at all. Hang on a minute. And 10 is the most unbearable level of problem. Okay? And just, let's start tapping. While we talk about, what can you do? Because this will also help. See? What practical tips can I give you to return to your well-being? So first of all, I would say, watch out. Watch out for the stories you tell yourself, because half the time there's not even any truth in them. In fact, quite often, there's not even any truth in them. So watch out for the stories, and change hands if you want to. You don't have to. If you prefer, you could also do palms up to the sky, like I say to children at schools, where I have introduced tapping, loads of them, because sometimes people get confused with what side of the hand we're tapping on. So if you go palms up to the sky, you can never get it wrong, by the way. Then you'll be tapping a very important acupuncture point, which you will be stimulating, which is proven as recognized by the NHS, which is now funding tapping treatment, as the evidence-based intervention that it is. It is proven to send calming signals to the brain to reduce cortisol and to physically calm people down. So, as we keep tapping my personal COVID safe sequence, you can mirror me, and we'll check in a minute whether your level has in fact gone down a bit already. Okay, so you can keep tapping on the top of the head. All the points you see me tapping, even if I'm talking about something else, all the points you see me tapping are very well recognized endpoints of acupuncture channels. Okay, so watch out for the stories you tell yourself. Get used to the idea of asking yourself, hang on, is that a truth? Is that a fact? Or is this my thinking being muddy, being unclear? And if you think it might be your thinking being muddy or being unclear, feel free to stop listening to that thinking. Do some tapping if you want to, by all means, but feel free to just give yourself permission to stop listening to that given train of thought, to stop engaging, to let the guy get off the bus. Okay? The next set of points they're in the hand, it's in your hand. So on the side of the, hang on, can you see it well there? On the side of every finger where the nail begins. Just keep tapping as I talk to you. And thank you so much for being there. You are all truly, absolutely wonderful beings of light. And sometimes you don't even realize that. That's all it is. So watch out for the stories. Watch out for the over meaningful thoughts. So many thoughts that we seem to give the status to of being over meaningful thoughts. This thought is important. I need to stick with it. I need to stick with it. So, classic case. You create a goal, you create something, you decide you need to do something. And I'm not saying don't strive, but don't do things because you think your well-being lies in them, because it doesn't lie in them, it lies in you. Okay? But classic example would be certain goals. I've had people who have set a certain goal for themselves and then have come to me because they're struggling achieving it. You know? Well, guess what? A goal is a thought you had once. You know? And if the doctor is saying really you shouldn't be doing this because you're going to hurt yourself, and you have hurt yourself and you really should give it up, and I'm talking about myself in that case actually, goodness me, I don't know, when I was a banker, never being the fittest, I decided I had to run 5K. Totally decided. I gave this, I created this goal and I gave it this overly meaningful status. And then when I had been training and I could already run 5K and it was lovely and everything, but the race hadn't come. And I went to the doctor and the doctor said to me, look, you have a hip imbalance right now. And I can see you're very determined. I can see you're a typical banker being determined about achieving goals and everything. But you have hurt yourself and you can't run this race. Oh my goodness, I was so cross. What do you mean I can't run this race? What do you mean? I have been training, I need to run this race. And he said to me, well, if you're so determined to get some money for charity and everything, find yourself a 5K swim and do that. And he was quite vocal and I was a bit taken aback, but goodness, he was so right. What thoughts are you giving this status to? No, this is a thing and I have to do it and I have to listen. Of course, fortunately, I chose to listen and I did something else. Because that goal was just a thought I'd made up. So watch out for those things that you sort of create yourself through your thinking and then you put them in a pedestal and decide that they have to run your life. Just watch out for those. There may be different ones for you. For some people, it's achievement. Achieve. If I don't achieve, I'm not worthy. I'm not saying don't achieve. For heaven's sake, go and train, go and achieve, go and learn, go and grow. But don't do it because you think you can only be happy if you do that. Don't do it because you think your well-being depends upon it. Because that is categorically not the case. What other things can you do? Remember that it's okay to not be okay. There's so much talk about this. I'm going to do a video just about the it's okay not to be okay. And but also remember, and this is my contribution to it, that it's also okay to be okay. That just because your mate is panicking or your neighbor is panicking or the world is panicking, it doesn't mean you need to panic. Because a panicky feeling is just a feeling, and all it's telling you is about the lack of clarity in your own mind in the moment. About how you're not even worth listening to. Your thoughts are not even worth listening to. So don't feel too guilty. In fact, don't feel guilty at all. Because sometimes we feel guilty if we're feeling okay. It's like, how dare I feel okay? How dare I not be panicking? How dare I be having a decent time even? Yes, it's okay not to be okay, and I've made it my life's work to help people who are not okay. Absolutely, it's okay not to be okay. But it's also okay to be okay. Right? Don't forget, no matter how far you've traveled, you can always come home. Because in that place inside of you, where the thinking drops, in that place inside of you, it's lovely and quiet. You don't need anyone to get you there. That's the best bit about it. that feeling, that quiet feeling that you do get sometimes, that you might be getting even more easily after a bit of tapping. That feeling is available to you anytime you like it. There was a snow globe I wanted to talk to you about, but I'm going over time. So I'll give you a quick hint about it and I'll do another video about it. That's okay. You can keep an eye on my Facebook page, on my Tap It Better Facebook page, or in my YouTube channel, or in the groups I run. And there'll be videos about these separate things that I haven't quite got to really cover in depth. So the bit about the snow globe, I've got a snow globe here. I used to think they were a bit naff, but I find them quite useful to teach now. Can you see that snow globe? It says, yes, yes, it says. So I thought it was quite appropriate. So if you look at the snow in that snow globe, and I hope you can see it, it's more like glitter in this case, but we'll call it snow for the sake of the example. If you look at it and you can see the snow moving around, it would be quite hard to stop that snow moving, to stop that snow falling, so to speak, or whatever you might call it, for as long as I'm moving the snow globe, right? And this, my friends, is exactly the same that happens with your state of mind. If you'll only put the snow globe down, the snow will settle. And that is exactly the same with your mind. If you're interested in this part of it, just watch my snow globe video, which I'll create soon. Okay? That is the same with your state of mind. So my final tip to you would be, if you think you need to find your well-being, just stop shaking the snow globe. I hope this has helped some of you. Do send me some feedback. I always love to hear what bits really resonated with you, what bits you would like to hear more about, because then I can go and just go straight in there and expand on that bit. Thank you so much again for being here. And stay well, stay safe, of course. And happy World Wellbeing Week. I gotta go now. See you soon.